As part of our Farewell HST programme, I have the honour of giving you an extra driver's eye view, which will take us over the Manton line. Nowadays freight dominated, it is used by trains on diversion, but also for our one train a day that runs empty from London to Leicester. Our HST, head code 5 Mike 17, approaches Kettering, passing the carriage sidings, which came into use in 2020 with the arrival of former Greater Anglia Class 360 D0 EMUs.
I wonder if we are going to have a Thunderbird now.
Kettering. The station sits at milepost 71, serving a town with 56,000 souls. A Class 222 Meridian arrives on platform 4 to terminate on a short shuttle service from Corby. By May 2021, with the new timetable change, all services to Corby will be provided by the Class 360s.
Down the copper, yeah.
This is Kettering North Junction. If you wish to follow the Midland Mainline to Nottingham, click on the description below for the full route and longer version. Meanwhile, we curve away from that railway and head onto the Manton line itself, which as you can see is electrified, though this will only be as far as Corby. 24 4-car Class 360 D0s have transferred over from Greater Anglia to provide the service, and due to enter service in May 2021. The Manton line has a unique history, as do so many other railways in the United Kingdom, being built by the Midland Railway, opening on the 1st of December 1879 for goods traffic, and for passengers on the 1st of March 1880. It was seen as a major part of the Midland Mainline, with trains running between London, Nottingham, Leeds and Carlisle, including named trains such as the Waverley. Originally called the Thames Forth Express in 1927, the name was changed 30 years later and ran to Edinburgh via the scenic Settle and Carlisle and Waverley routes. Unfortunately for the time, the steam service would have taken 9 hours 15 minutes between both the English and Scottish capitals, compared to its rival the Flying Scotsman, whose train only took 6 hours. The train had acquired a bad reputation due to its slowness and unpunctuality, no doubt due to the low line speeds and gradients that had to be negotiated. The service was withdrawn during the winter of 1964, but summer-only services continued until September 1968, when it ended for good. The line shadows the Corby Link Road, the A45.
Be reopened in about a matter of 5 years if it kicks back off big time, because you look how close they are to that housing estate. Yeah. Corby.
Well, they can't, because it must be sold to somebody now, so they only have a single dwelling. They built one around it. They're all prefab now, aren't they? Just come and drop them in.
Drop them in, and that's it. This is Kettering Viaduct.
This is Geddington Viaduct. The Manton line is beset with major engineering features that include tunnels and of course the longest viaduct in the country.
Well, there's all these people here, some of them must have jobs.
On Farewell at the moment.
Yeah. We looked at buy here about 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago. Down the road.
I didn't know that, so all these times are like 40 fucking minutes sat here doing nothing, twiddling my thumb, starving.
Yeah, I'm not sure you can walk in time.
Corby, with a population today of around 54,000, was known at one time for its steel production, also being referred to as Little Scotland, due to the large number of Scottish labourers who came to work here. Before Corby Station, you can see a siding curving in from the right, the stub of a single-track line to the steelworks, which was taken out of use in 1986 when the industry began to decline. Corby Station has just one platform nowadays, opening with the line in 1879 as Weldon and Corby to distinguish it from Corby Glen in Lincolnshire. Under British Rail rule, the passenger services were withdrawn over the route in 1966. This included Corby Station, though reopened in 1986, being used as a shuttle service for 11 trains a day to Kettering, but was unreliable and closed on the 2nd of June 1990. However, since 2009, passenger services were restored and it now has the benefits of electrification, which will enhance more travel on the line.
Which I know some of our drivers will probably find that very hard to get around the train.
This is a repeater for the next signal, which is partially obscured by the bend.
So wipe out that eagle there. It was a kite.
With a big bird, that's all I know. And it wasn't a big bird.
This is Corby Tunnel, 1,920 yards long. It is so dark here in the tunnel that these unique views can only be glimpsed with a special image intensifying camera. In fact, our drivers commented that they could see the tunnel clearer through the TV screen than they can with the naked eye. Back in 2019, 550 passengers were stranded for 7 hours after a landslip occurred, causing the HST that was only travelling at 40 miles an hour to become stuck. A southbound train was brought in to rescue the 191 passengers on board the landslip train, only subsequently this train got trapped by floodwater. Not surprisingly, the passengers at this time had become agitated because of uncomfortable and deteriorating conditions on board. The flooding had been caused by a blockage underneath a nearby bridge, which forced excess water to flow into 2 flood storage ponds, though one of these ponds had overflowed and ran away down the cutting slopes, resulting a landslip.
days, brand new. And you can probably purchase them, but I guarantee they won't be cheap.
I think you can buy ones now that are just like 15 quid.
But literally a disc in and disc out.
Yeah.
This wonderful technology, but we're still relying on every aspect.
The village of Gretton benefited in having a railway station, opening in 1880 when passenger services commenced. Closed in 1966, the station building still stands and remains in private ownership. That sound is the driver's vigilance device. If our driver doesn't lift their foot off the pedal momentarily to cancel the sound, the train's brakes will be applied automatically. Haringworth Station closed in 1948. It boasted a signal box, which has been preserved by the Northampton and Lamport Railway at Pittsford and Brampton. Naturally, the box is listed.
You get the magnet for the train.
We are now approached the very symbol of the Manton line, the Welland Viaduct over the valley of the same name. It is 1,275 yards long and has 82 arches, each with 40 feet spans, making it the longest masonry viaduct across a valley in the UK. Some 30 million bricks were used for its construction, the contractors being Lucas and Aird, work commencing between 1875 and 1878, at a total cost of £12,000. In today's money, that is equivalent to £1,400,000. The viaduct is now protected as a Grade 2 listed building, and can also be known as the Syston or Haringworth Viaduct. After the viaduct, we have crossed the county line from Northamptonshire into Rutland. Don't worry, there is no issue with the HST travelling at this slow speed. The maximum speed limit at the moment is 20 miles an hour. Just here, we cross over former railway lines that branched off from each other at the former Syston Junction. The first led to Wansford, being operated as a joint venture between the London and North Western and Great Northern Railways. This opened in 1845, the original company being known as the Northampton and Peterborough Railway. It closed in 1964. The other line that diverged was the Rugby and Stamford line. That railway was built in 1850 and despite providing a more direct route from the Midlands to East Anglia, fell to the Beeching Axe, the last train running on June the 6th, 1966.
Syston Tunnel.
This is Syston Tunnel, 206 yards long. Now this bridge is where another line passed beneath us, diverging from the previously mentioned junction as well, this being the Uppingham branch, opened in 1894. By 1910 there was only 5 daily trains a day from Syston, the village located a few miles to the west of us at this point. The line closed in 1960, and today nothing remains of the former terminus, the station area becoming a small industrial estate.
Yeah, I can't believe we've still got semaphores. There's no need for it, is it? There's no need.
That's not paid for free aspect signal.
We pass milepost 87, measured from St Pancras.
Once again, all the money they've spent upgrading.
Speed has now increased up to 60 miles an hour. Mention must be made of our HST's engines. Built between 1975 and 1982, the Class 43 power cars had Paxman Valenta engines rated at 2,250 horsepower. At the turn of the millennium, all HSTs had their engines replaced, the horsepower near enough the same but with subtle differences. For example, these engines have reduced fuel consumption and noise levels. In the 2020s, the power cars will continue on for another few years, while the Mark III coaches could last well into the 2030s. We emerge from the 1,842 yard long Glaston Tunnel and face the northwest.
Glaston Tunnel and let the thing just smoke it out, and obviously with the old Valenta engine and that.
He sounds a bit fucking drama with that one. Yeah, so that makes noise.
Yeah, I know, yeah, they give for a lot of people.
wing tunnel, 353 yards long. Manton. Here we join the line from Leicester to Peterborough, just before the 749-yard long tunnel. Originally the station was known as Manton for Uppingham, being the railhead for that town until the aforementioned branch from Syston opened in 1894. The suffix was dropped in 1934 and closed in 1966.
Okay, I'm reading on Dino's exceptionally good notes.
Yeah.
We are now on the Leicester to Peterborough line, an important cross-country route for passengers transferring from the Midlands to the east of England. Currently, cross-country provide the train services on the route connecting Birmingham and Leicester with east of England destinations such as Ely, Cambridge and Stansted Airport. This railway was originally built by the Syston and Peterborough Railway, having been formed in 1845 and constructed by George Stephenson and Charles Liddell. The line connected with the Rugby and Stamford Railway at Luffenham, which at that time was under the control of the LNWR. The Midland, which took over the workings of the S&P, had to obtain running powers for their trains to continue to Stamford. While most of the route opened in 1846, the problem at Stapleford Park delayed the opening of the line fully for another 2 years.
Alright, so this should act as your distance.
We drive
So if you were stopping at Oakham, the houses are normally the dead giveaway. I'd use the houses as a braking area. Or the first level crossing, double level crossings.
It talks about the green fence, which I'm going to assume is this one here.
Is it fence? Oh yeah, it's green fence, houses. You got the mile post as well. You got your that was your distance related. So this acts as your distance and home signal. So you're basically through to the home. Don't ask me what the crossings are apart from National Road. And I think this one's open.
They're all put down on that sheet of paper. I'm not sure. Review them next time I'm interested. Is this a free car?
Yeah.
We pass through Oakham, 27 miles east of Leicester, and retains much of its original features, including the station building that is listed. Although the station is served by cross-country trains every hour, it's not that company that manages the station, but East Midlands Railway, despite only having one train a day that calls here. Cross-country, being one of the largest train operating companies in the country, do not manage any station.
In
Signalling is now controlled conventionally, and we get to view semaphore signals in action, delightful memorabilia that would have been seen all over the railway network back in the day.
Oh my god, he's got the camera out. Signal's got the camera out.
Well, it's so rare for me to come round now and take photographs. Oh, that bloke's never been round here.
I might over him tonight.
Virgin trip.
So that was your, so we got a single yellow acting as your distance. I hope single yellow, if I'm on there, I thought it looked like red.
You'll notice from time to time that some of the overbridges have been rebuilt in order to accommodate the extra size of continental shipping containers. Introduced in the 1970s, British Rail did their best to avoid rebuilding certain bridges by lowering the track bed. However, where it was not possible because of ground conditions, the sad reality was that the old Victorian style just had to go.
So your next signal's just coming around the corner at Ashwell here.
Yes, that makes some noise.
I was going to say the speed ain't coming off that far. So this should be a colour light, hopefully. If my memory serves correct.
Just beyond Ashwell Station, that closed in 1966, was the former Ashwell Junction. The junction was part of the Cottesmore Ironstone branch, in use from 1883 to 1974 to serve quarries in the vicinity of Cottesmore and Exton. Remarkably, part of that old branch line still survives at the Rutland Railway Museum, trading by the name as Rocks by Rail, the Living Ironstone Museum.
Such a long section is split up, so he controls it, so get out of the way, peasant. Yeah, Kettering, I think, that the box should be at, but they've taken it off. We're still deemed as Kettering or something like that, on those lines.
Here we pass an advanced warning board of a reduction in speed down to 80 miles per hour. The SP above the given value stands for specifically for sprinters. This applies for Class 170 Turbo Stars and not for HSTs. Wissendine opened with the line in 1848, being known as Wyndham, changing to the current title in 1891. The station closed well before the beaching era, in this case in 1955. No doubt this was because of the very rural nature of the station, the respected villages being located a mile away. typical of British weather, it is now starting to rain. As this was a one-off driver's eye view, you'll just have to grin and bear it for the time being. This was where the Midland and Great Northern Joint Railway converged, opening in 1894 from Castle Bytham and Bourne. As is so often the case, passengers were the first to go in 1959, with goods following in 1961 between Saxby and South Witham. This curve takes us around the previously mentioned Stapleford Park, the reason for the delay to the line's opening by 2 years. Before construction, the Midland had surveyed a route from Syston that would follow the valley of the River Reek and then the River Eye, which would have passed through the important town of Melton Mowbray. After this, the line would eventually swing to the south so that it could call at Oakham, but this meant the line had to pass close to or even encounter Stapleford Park, which the Lord of the Manor, Lord Harborough, objected to vociferously. While the law was firmly on the Midland side, an act to amend the route would have taken the railway further away. That included a tunnel underneath a cuckoo plantation, and would you believe this was the Lord's favourite part of the park? Just imagine how angry he became when the tunnel collapsed, taking much of the spinney with it. Yet again, another Act from Parliament had to be passed in 1847, and this sharp curve is the result, known locally as Lord Harborough's Curve. Steam Express services found this a nuisance, and in time was able to reduce the curves, including moving the station at Saxby. Lord Harborough had died in the meantime, and the estate bought by Lord Gretton, who had more sympathy to the railway.
Now picture this in thick fog. Foundations of the signal boxes like here, where that pile of bricks or rubble or something is. Yeah, so your home signal and your section signal at semaphores. So that would have acted as your distance around.
Melton Mowbray lies on the River Eye. It has a population since the 2011 census of 27,000. The town is well known for its culinary speciality, the Melton Mowbray pork pie, and as the location for one of its 6 licensed makers of Stilton cheese, hence its promotion as Britain's rural capital of food.
Just be ready to throw.
Yeah, I was going to say that, there it is. But there is TPWS attached to this semaphore signal. Because obviously it's the junction. So if If you sat here for quite a while and that came off, be prepared to stop at your next section. And this is SDO3.
The important town of Melton Mowbray has had a station here since day one, boasting 2 stations around the 1870s.
Kind of repeater or coactor or something.
Yeah. Or a line. Imagine that.
What's this light thing on the railway?
The surviving rail line used to head off to Nottingham, opening in 1879 to goods and 1880 to passengers. The 13.5 mile long line closed in 1968, but while it does not have any passenger services these days, the line is retained and even electrified, for this is the entrance road to the old Dalby test track. The site is owned by Alstom and can test all different types of rolling stock, from the London Underground to the latest intercity express trains. While the rail connection can be seen from Old Dalby, the spur that connected with the Great Northern and London and North Western Joint Railway does not, having disappeared in 1964. That railway line ran to Leicester with a station they called Belgrave Road, and having a station at Melton Mowbray, at the time of the railway grouping in 1923, had been called Melton Mowbray South, our station being known as Melton Mowbray North, that suffix being dropped in 1965, a year after closure. For the final part of our journey, we travel over the section of line that was opened in 1846.
He must have negotiated a really good wage, good salary.
He's a good bloke. What we don't want is Colin to ever come out there.
I don't think Colin will. I think Colin's going to be there for the foreseeable until he retires. In about 18 months' time, you say. 2 years or so tops.
There was 4 intermediate stations between Melton Mowbray and Syston. This was the first, Ashfordby, originally called Kirby. The station was renamed Ashfordby in 1903 and closed in 1951.
Never fucking saw that when I was going around the East London line, let me tell you.
What you did, you just saw it in a different format.
Yeah. In a packet.
Yeah.
FY Frisbee.
Rearsby, yeah.
Rearsby opened a year after the line, but until 1849 it had trains stopping here on market days only to Melton Mowbray. This time the station closed in 1961. There was never any goods facilities.
Yeah, what's he up to? What's she up to?
No, I'll be up to, so probably the same. Hence the curtains.
Yeah, but there's no one to look at.
We're now following the valley of the River Reek.
Been watching all your Netflix programs, yeah.
Let's say that.
Yeah. Been watching something.
Let me eat that, let's see it.
Cinderella.
Shit.
And the
You are a plane.
Yeah.
Notice at whistle boards that the driver only uses one tone. Owing to environmental noise considerations, many residents that live near railways have often complained of the over-exuberant use of the horn. Brooksby also closed in 1961.
I don't like the way that they have brought everything, including The Simpsons and everything,
Rearsby closed at the same time as Ashfordby.
Yeah, the second three.
Yeah.
Or the first three. Yeah, I thought that there was cinematic opera.
A small halt was located here, serving the Royal Ordnance Factory at East Goscote, though it had been known as Queninborough. Here we pass under the A607.
That's what winds me up. Where you at? You know exactly where I'm at.
So it's declaring that
You don't know where I'm
your
at?
systems aren't working.
Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah, some pancreas splat for the floor.
Local services were worked by Class 105 diesel multiple units, whilst express services were actually formed by Class 31 diesel locomotives running between Birmingham and Norwich, with a rake of 4 Mark I carriages. These were replaced in 1986 with the first Sprinter trains, Class 150s, and then subsequently by Class 156 Super Sprinters in 1988. The service operated hourly between Birmingham and Ely, with trains alternating between Cambridge or Norwich, and then later to Stansted Airport in 1991. After privatisation, Central Trains operated the route. Through services ran from Aberystwyth and Chester to Cambridge and Stansted Airport to Liverpool Lime Street, although these services were subsequently cut back, the Aberystwyth trains ending in 2001, although a few services continued to terminate at Shrewsbury until 2004, while the Liverpool service was removed a year earlier. As we know today, Cross Country provide the hourly service between Birmingham and Stansted, whilst East Midlands Railway provide 1 train a day in both directions. Additionally, freight trains use this route between the West Midlands and East Anglia, primarily container trains to the port of Felixstowe and sand trains to King's Lynn. We come to a stop at a red signal protecting Syston East Junction, formed of a triangle of lines which connect with the Midland Mainline. A freight train is blocking our pass onto the single line cord.
We've got a gas canister as well.
Nuclear canister.
Hence why we put all the match wagons and flatbeds are empty.
The offending freight passes us, headed by a Class 66 diesel locomotive.
We've got a gas canister as well.
Nuclear canister.
Hence why we put all the match wagons and flatbeds are empty. Sometimes it feels like this is just going to roll back when your brakes come off and you're like, on the power notch one, the amps are there and there's nothing going on. It's like it's just holding it. Like, come on.
Is there some superhuman at the back? Just probably because speaking things.
Here the double track chord heads to the northbound Midland Mainline.
The UDR, the Ulster Defence Route.
Here to Journey's End, we are now under the control of Leicester Power Signal Box. Notice to our right that the up and down slow lines now merge into one. It's now a single bi-directional slow line all the way to Journey's End. We now rejoin the Midland Mainline and pass the single platform of Syston. Initially it closed in 1968, but was reopened in 1994 as part of the Ivinghoe Line project between Loughborough and Leicester. The bidirectional single line is used by EMR regional services from Leicester to Nottingham and onwards to Lincoln Central. This part of the Midland Mainline was built by the Midland Counties Railway from Trent Junction to Rugby in 1840.
Platform 5. Which I have to say, I saw it for the first time.
It looks like a 5.
And it is a fucking 5. If you're not paying attention, you could go, oh yeah, platform 5. It's like this, why didn't he just cross us straight over at Syston so we could just wood straight up along the main?
Exactly.
It's on the slow line, Bedford to Leagrave, Leagrave back over to Leagrave. So if they could have a Welland Viaduct through, you would actually probably shave off about 10 minutes. Easily. Getting at midnight 15 or midnight 10 rather than midnight 22. And so, as you say, it's something as stupid as that will make all the fucking difference.
Yeah, it is a norm.
Gives the guys who live over on the other side, Anglia side, platform 4, yeah. Gives the guys who live
We
up
pass
there
an
at
East
Anglia,
Midlands Railway Class 222 Meridian DMU, heading en route to Sheffield. From 1875 to 1968, this was the location of Humberston Road.
We have to do what is required, but you've got that diagrams and fucking
to the tightest possible temperature.
Yeah.
That is fine on paper, but one little hiccup there is just...
First bus station is towards the front of the train. Bicycle spaces are at the very rear. Please...
So our empty HST head code 5 Mike 17 arrives in Leicester. It will now return back over the same route towards London St Pancras to form the 1434 to Nottingham. From Nottingham, the HST will head back to London at 1645, heading north with one last trip at 1904 to Leeds, and then to run empty out of service to Neville Hill Depot. All of this recorded for posterity.
Plenty of time.